On this episode of Newsflash, today we recap DNC Night 3, Rhetoric versus Reality, including 4 of the biggest speeches, including from Hillary Clinton, Gabby Giffords, Barack Obama, and Kamala Harris, the AOC endorsement paradox, Steve Bannon's charged, Biden moves in austerity, and something I'm very, very excited about, which is the Matt Taibbi drinking game. We're going to be announcing the rules, or going through some of the rules for this Matt Taibbi drinking game, see if it's worth playing for all of you drinkers out there tonight, as Joe Biden, the speech he's going to make that he's been preparing for his entire life as he accepts the nomination tonight. Going to be very, very exciting. But yeah, we'll start off by talking about the third night of the Democratic National Convention. It was a marked improvement on its predecessors in one crucial sense. At least this time there was no Republicans present. The party had spent the first 2 evenings of its virtual gathering stuffing proceedings to the gills with the sort of GOP war criminals, enemies of women's and workers' rights, and predatory capitalists. On Wednesday, though, Democrats took a break from that, but don't worry, Michael Bloomberg will be back on tonight, so you can tick off the enemies of women's rights, enemies of workers' rights, and predatory capitalists, but just no war criminals tonight, we hope. I mean, you can make an argument for that Joe Biden is complicit in some pretty bad things, but the evening was now also really one of the most well-produced and policy-heavy of the DNC thus far. And it was, of course, the one that I didn't watch because the biggest complaints for the past minutes for me have been there's no policy. There's, Trump is really mean and Joe Biden's a really, really nice guy, like, a lot of different times. So that's been a pretty big part of it that we saw. The essential playbook, though, remains the same. Gesture around. You see what's going on here, guys? You see what's going on? Like, you see how bad this is? And really a lot of what the DNC is doing here, and really the Democratic Party more effectively, and just the Biden campaign as a whole, is taking the abject horror of this moment and the suffering that Americans are so clearly in and saying, you really want 4 more years of that? And I mean, it's proving to be a very, very effective case. There's been so much bone-deep injustice over the past 4 years that this is a perfectly sound electoral strategy. On Wednesday, we were reminded of the Parkland massacre and the monstrous crime of family separations, of Trump's assault on the environment and his hatred of women. Above all, we were reminded of his essential inhumanity. Part of what makes Trump seem so malevolent is he's not even able to fake that straightforward human emotions. He's almost beyond mere amorality. There is something there's really simply a frighteningly blank space where a person should be. Compared to that, someone who knows, or at least shows they're capable of feeling something as basic as just, like, normal decency and normal empathy can cause, like, really signify a real shift, a real sea change for a lot of people, because they're like, oh my gosh, that guy, is he expressing normal human emotion? Like, is that what he's doing? Oh my, I've never seen anything like that before. Oh my God, I gotta vote for him. Or at least in the last 4 years. But yeah, Democrats know that Biden's decency and empathy were stressed over and over again on Wednesday, as they would have been for the whole convention, but we kept being promised that he cares. Wouldn't it be nice to have someone back in charge that absolutely cares about you? I mean, of course it would be nice, but here's the sting in the tail. Here's where the sting in the tail emerges. There's a nasty gap between rhetoric and the things that Democrats say they put forward. They're increasingly adept at echoing the talking points of activist movements and the reality of who Joe Biden is. They can say that he's going to care for you in all the most woke ways possible, but will it actually be true? Much of Wednesday night was dedicated to women, an appropriate theme for an evening in which Kamala was anointed as the vice presidential nominee and clear future leader of the party's establishment wing. But it's hard not to think of Biden's treatment against Anita Hill, or the fact that his signature Violence Against Women Act, in and of itself an increasingly controversial piece of legislation, was part of his notorious push for mass incarceration. So, like, whenever you see one side of the scale being addressed, he can't seem to do it without hurting another group of marginalized people. There is a lengthy, gut-wrenching segment about Trump's immigration policy, something that I think would be a very, very effective move for Democratic voters. But Biden's role in his administration that presided over record numbers of deportation and his spiteful defense of that policy went unmentioned. I think that's a very, very important way of looking at it, because it's not a big thing that people talk about. You don't hear the realities of Joe Biden, Barack Obama's immigration regime addressed very often, because you never see it. And I really give a lot of credit to people who were kind of on the Democratic left, not as, like, they still had bridges intact with the Democratic Party, coming out and saying things like, okay, we got to realize, people who, Latino activists, people who still, again, they had bridges with the Democratic Party. Like, it was probably politically and professionally risky for them to go out and say things like this, but they made it clear. They were like, yes, I have been a target. I have been somebody who has been victimized by the Obama policy. Like, I've been someone who's been hurt, like significantly hurt by a lot of the stuff that Joe Biden has done and Barack Obama has done. And that's something that, or my family members have been hurt or whatever. Like, that is a key point that is oftentimes very, very, it's left unaddressed. And it's a big reason why people, like, Latinos are looking at Biden here and being like, wait a minute, we still remember what you did with Barack Obama, and he still has not really come out and addressed it, I think, properly, and it's led to a big deficit. So yeah, I think it's been a big part of it. The dissonance is not just found in Biden; it's the dissonance of the Democrats as a whole. If they win in November, we'll see if this rhetoric is real or whether they mean it, or once again, will they just revert to type? All right, we do have some interesting speeches for you. A lot of interesting speeches. And we start off with just some moments to recap, I guess you could say, from Hillary Clinton. This is a 1 minute, 29 second clip you got to get ready for of Hillary. Yeah, so big moment for her. And I'm going to play her clip. This is going to be, again, the first time I'm hearing it, because I fell asleep too early last night. Fell asleep at like 10:30. Got up nice and early this morning. Time for do a mid-morning show. And yeah, so this is what she had to say about this election.
Trump came in with so much set up for him: a strong economy, plans for managing crises, including a pandemic. Yes, we Democrats would have disagreed with him on many things, but if he had put his own interests and ego aside, seen the humanity in a child ripped from her parents at the border, or a protester calling for justice, or a family wiped out by natural disaster, that would have been a good thing for America and the world. For 4 years, people have told me, I didn't realize how dangerous he was. I wish I could do it all over. Or worst, I should have voted. Look, this can't be another woulda, coulda, shoulda election. If you vote by mail, request your ballot now and send it back right away. If you vote in person, do it early. Become a poll worker. Most of all, no matter what, vote. As Michelle Obama and Bernie Sanders warned us, if Trump is reelected, things will get even worse. Vote for honest elections so we, not a foreign adversary, choose our president. Vote for the diverse, hopeful America we saw in last night's roll call. And don't forget, Joe and Kamala can win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me.
It's like, again, like some of the stuff like she says there is obviously right.
It's me,
and
Kamala.
We'll get to Kamala in a second. But I think like one of the biggest things that we saw here was like, it's still, they can't be a woulda, coulda, shoulda election, right, Hillary? Maybe you woulda, coulda, shoulda have gone to Wisconsin. Like, we still see, at least from that speech, it was very, very, like, traditional. And, you know, she's saying Bernie Sanders' name there through just gritted teeth, because that antipathy, that bone-deep antipathy from that wing of the party towards Bernie Sanders still very much exists. We saw it when he dropped out. They organized, like, a Zoom cocktail hour to celebrate. But, like, there still is, from that side of the party, I think, just not just with Hillary, but a broad, just general unacknowledgement of the woulda, coulda, the woulda, coulda, shoulda part of it also falls on the candidate as well. Like, that is a big part of it. Like, she said she talks about how she goes around, talks to people. Oh, I should have voted. Like, I made such a mistake not to vote. Well, maybe the mistake, just a little bit, could have possibly been by the fact that the way that Hillary Clinton ran her campaign, that was boring, was uninspiring, had no positive vision for America, and represented a lot of what we've seen in this convention, which was just no policy and a basic appeal to, isn't Trump so bad, and aren't I a lot better? And it didn't work last time. I mean, there was a case to be made that 4 years of just abject horror would work, but it really was something. I mean, it was a workmanlike effort from the Democrats' 2016 nominee, and one that evoked, 2016. She looted the slings and arrows. She did a Bernie Sanders shout-out, and she referred to foreign adversaries, and she made sure to note that she won the popular vote. It's forever 2016 for many Democrats. It's the year that their brain broke, I think, in large part, and it really wasn't quite the same after. To be quite honest, it is, and it also shows really the Democratic Party at least trying to, and significant parts of the Democratic Party trying to move away from the Clintons and kind of reestablish their own brand. But really, the biggest thing that I took away from that speech is the continuous blaming of the voters, the inability to understand like areas where the Democratic Party could have screwed up at one point or another. And just they refuse. It's like, it's always you are two groups of people blame there: the Russians and the voters. Like, that is still who Hillary Clinton thinks lost her this election. It wasn't Hillary Clinton. It wasn't the voters who weren't excited to vote for Hillary Clinton. It was because they didn't vote. Why is that? Well, I mean, not my problem. That's that is the Hillary Clinton mindset there, and it is a big problem. All right, so here's a clip from Gabby Gifford's speech.
Out of pain, we choose to find meaning. A glimmer of light that lands on a promise. Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, shot in the head from less than 3 feet away. But she survived. When tragedy strikes, we seek comfort in knowing we aren't alone.
Join us in this fight.
We seek strength to keep fighting, to keep moving forward. We turn to leaders who share our pain.
In the most difficult times, it's when we stand closest together. It's out of tragedy that we grow stronger.
He was there for me. He'll be there for you too.
We are a nation ready to end gun violence. A safer America is possible.
You can't hear from the audio here, but it kind of shows her recovery and like the point where she had no hair and like was really seemed to be like weak. And then now she's like strong. She's even learning how to speak again. Like you can see her on the paper from the video, and you can't hear this over the audio, so I'm just explaining it to you here. But like you can see, like the paper will be like, this is how you're supposed to move your mouth when you say was, and then fight, which is like, man, she's learning how to speak in typical Democrat language. But still, it's an incredibly inspiring story, and it's a great way to like kind of fit in the policy part of it here as Democrats try to push more on policy. The fact that there is a big part of the traditional Democratic policy platform that's gone unaddressed for a long time now, which is gun violence, and it's a great thing for kind of corporate Democrats to pursue and make a name out of. You saw Beto O'Rourke trying to do that after the El Paso shooting when he was running for president, which was very, very impactful because it doesn't really like get in the way of any kind of corporate lobby like healthcare would. I mean, aside from the gun lobby, which they're perfectly okay to be demonized in most circles. They're not a particularly powerful lobby. If you look at the healthcare lobby, you compare them to healthcare lobby, the banking industry, like all that stuff. And it's also like it's a blatantly horrible issue. Like gun violence, like who wants gun violence? Nobody. Like it's especially on the Democratic side. And who wants gun control? Like it's a broadly popular issue, like especially in the Democratic side and in America. It's common sense gun reform, like enjoys wide popular support. And Gabby Giffords with her story, and especially the fact that her husband is running in a pretty tight Senate seat this year, like she is really a great kind of vehicle almost to bring that policy into the national stage with her bravery and her incredible situation of all the